Hello, everyone, and welcome. We all get the same 24 hours in a day, but the way we talk about them, well, that can reveal a tremendous amount about a culture. Today, we're going to dive deep into the beautiful and, as you'll see, incredibly logical way that Mandarin speakers frame their day, right from the first light of dawn to the end of the evening. So, let's begin.
So just take a second to think about that. How do you divide your day? We have morning, afternoon, evening. These feel like universal concepts, don't they? But the language we use to label them can show us a really unique worldview. As we're about to discover, the Mandarin system isn't just poetic. It's incredibly systematic, and it reveals a perspective that's really centered on balance and the rhythm of the natural world. All right, let's start where every day begins, the early hours. That time of waking up, maybe grabbing that first cup of tea or coffee, and seeing the sun come up. In Mandarin, this foundational period of the day is called zǎoshang. Okay, so here it is, zǎoshang, pronounced zǎoshang. Let's really try to get the tones right on this one. The first syllable, zǎo, has that dipping and rising third tone, so it goes down, then up. Zǎo. The second syllable, shang, is a light, neutral tone, so it's much quicker, shang. Put it together, zǎoshang. This is our word for morning, and it's really the first building block for our entire day.
Now this is where studying characters gets so fascinating. Let's do a little bit of detective work on this first character, zǎo. The most important piece of the puzzle is right there at the top, ri. Now some of you might already know this is the radical, or the character, for the sun. The bottom part, shi, is actually a simplified version of an older, more complex component. But the key thing to take away here is the visual story. The character literally looks like the sun just starting to rise over the horizon. The logic is just inescapable. Zǎo is fundamentally tied to the sun's first appearance. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Let's really zoom in on that first syllable, zǎo. This is a classic third tone, and I know it can be one of the trickiest for English speakers. Your vocal pitch has to do a little scoop, a dip and rise. Think of the shape of a check mark. You start in your mid-range, you drop your voice down, and then you bring it right back up. Zǎo. A very common mistake is to either say it flat, zǎo, or to only do the falling part and forget the rise. You absolutely have to complete that upward flick at the end. Let's all try it together. Zǎo. Perfect. That upward movement is so important.
So, how do we actually put this into practice? Well, to give someone a standard morning greeting, you just add the character hao, which, as you know, means good. So that gives us 早上好. 早上好. The grammar here is so beautifully direct. It's literally morning, good. This is the polite standard greeting you'll use from the moment you wake up until around mid-morning. Now, let's see how this whole system starts to build on itself as the sun gets higher in the sky. After the morning, we move into the afternoon. And the Mandarin term for this period, well, it reveals the central axis around which the entire day is organized. All right, our next key term is xiàwǔ, pronounced xiàwǔ. Let's break down those tones. We have a sharp, falling fourth tone first, xia, and that's followed by a rising third tone, wǔ. So it's xiàwǔ. Now, this translates to afternoon, but its literal meaning is the key that unlocks the logic of the entire day.
Okay, so this is the crucial point, the real aha moment. The anchor of the Chinese day is the character wu, which means noon. It's not just a time, it's the pivot point. It's the peak of the sun's journey across the sky. So if you look at this chart, the time before noon is often called shangwǔ. This literally means above noon, because shang means up or before. So it makes perfect sense that the time after that peak is our word xiàwǔ, which literally means below noon, since xia means down or after. It shows this worldview that's so concerned with sequence, balance, and the natural symmetrical path of the sun. It's just brilliant.
Let's isolate that first tone again. Xia. This is the fourth tone. It needs to be sharp, quick, and really decisive. A lot of learners make it a gentle slide like xia. No, that's not quite right. Think of it more like a forceful downward chop. Imagine you're giving a firm command like go or stop. It's got that kind of energy. Xia. Feel that abrupt drop in your voice? Now let's combine it with the rising third tone. Xiàwǔ. Practice making that first part really crisp and forceful. At this point, I bet you can predict the greeting. Following that same elegant logic we saw before, good afternoon is simply 下午好, 下午好. Afternoon, good. This kind of consistency is a real hallmark of the language. Once you grasp these foundational patterns, it becomes very systematic and predictable.
All right, as the day keeps moving and the sun starts to set, we transition out of the afternoon and into the evening hours. So the final part of our day is wǎnshàng, pronounced wǎnshàng. Let's practice that together. It's that dipping rising third tone again, wǎn, and that's followed by our light neutral shàng, wǎnshàng. This is our word for evening. Let's do one more character deconstruction, this time on one, W-A-N. If you look to the left, you'll see our old friend the sun radical, rù. So right away, that tells us this character has something to do with the time of day. Now the component on the right, mian, M-I-N, is there to give us the sound, but it also carries meaning. Mian means to avoid or to escape. So we can actually create a little story here. This is the time when the sun, rù, has escaped mian from the sky. This is the evening. It's this amazing fusion of meaning and sound that makes Chinese characters so powerful and memorable.
And now, to complete our set of daily greetings, we just follow the exact same pattern we've established. We take our word for evening, wǎnshàng, and we add hào. This gives us wǎnshàng hào. With just these three phrases, you now have the essential polite greetings you need to carry you through an entire day in any Chinese-speaking environment.
Okay, excellent work. Now that we have all the individual pieces of the puzzle, let's put them together and visualize the complete structure of a day in Mandarin.
So this timeline really gives us a clear map. We start with zǎoshang, the early morning. Then we hit that crucial pivot point, zhōnggǔ, which is midday or noon. From there, we descend into xiàwǔ, the afternoon, or below noon. And finally, the day comes to a close with wǎnshàng, the evening. Seeing it all laid out like this really cements that logical, balanced progression of the day.
So we've seen that Mandarin doesn't just give names to the parts of the day. It structures them around a central solar pivot point. And this brings us to a final, and I think a much more profound question. If the structure of a language can shape our perception of something as fundamental as time, what else could it influence? Our understanding of more abstract concepts, things like hierarchy and relationships, or even the nature of cause and effect. That right there is the power of linguistics, and it's a question that will continue to make your studies richer and more rewarding. Thank you for your attention today.